Welcome to Preparing for Performance Reviews, What to Say and How to Say It. My name is Helen Browson, and I'm the Director of Client Experience at the Wisconsin School of Business Center for Professional and Executive Development. We offer more than 70 sessions of professional development programs per year at the Flino Center, located in the heart of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We also work with corporate clients to design customized development solutions that help their organizations move forward. Since this is designed to be a very condensed webinar, we won't have time at the end for questions. However, please ask questions in the chat box on your screen, and we'll answer them in an article on our blog, which will be out later this week. Our goal for today is to provide a framework for your performance review conversations and a few examples of what to say and how to say it. So let's get started. How to prepare. I'm going to walk through the process I use for performance reviews. There's no one perfect way, but for me, this is what works. Let me begin by recommending you check in with your Human Resources Department or the HR person in your organization. This is to determine if there's an established expectation about the format and practice of conducting performance reviews. It's important for organizations to have consistency around this practice for all employees. Once you have established this, you can move on to gathering feedback on the employee you are reviewing. There are many ways to collect feedback on an employee's performance. Perhaps you kept a file on the projects and tasks the employee completed over the review period. I do this by simply sliding emails into a folder in my Outlook that I reference to jog my memory and inspire me when I get ready to write reviews. You also want to be sure to include examples for the whole review period and not just those you've gathered most recently. Next, I like to talk to other staff and team members that have worked with the employee and ask for their feedback. I recommend using questions about how they interacted with the employee and if there's anything that stands out deserving recognition. I also ask for suggestions related to possible development opportunities. Not everyone you ask will provide feedback, but you will get a few nuggets you can use in building the performance review. It's also important to invite the employee being reviewed to prepare and bring examples of their work to the conversation themselves. This helps get them interested and invested in their own development because ultimately it's up to them to drive their personal and professional growth. Also, inevitably, the employee brings examples that I may have overlooked, but I would really want to make sure they're included in the final version of the review. Last, be sure to set aside uninterrupted time to write the review a couple of weeks prior to meeting with the employee. I have had 4 to 10 employees at any one time or another that I've been responsible for reviewing each year. It has been my experience and best practice to set aside a minimum of 1 to 2 hours per employee for preparation. Now, before I proceed, I would like to mention a bit of caution when writing a review. Keep in mind the best conversations do not include surprises. And what I mean by this is that ideally you have had many conversations with the employee throughout the review period about any issues that have occurred or any successes that they've had, so that when you're reviewing their work with them during their performance review, they will not be shocked or rocked by anything you're saying. This should literally be a summary of their performance based on their work throughout the review period and the conversations that you've had with them leading up to this point. Of course, not every situation is set upon ideal conditions, but do the best you can not to drop anything new on them in this meeting. What to write? Here at our center, we use a process called Brag, Worry, Wonder, Bet, or BWWB, a concept developed by our former executive director and now instructor, Steve King. I won't go into great depth about BWWB, but stay tuned for more information on that later in the webinar. There are 4 things that we consider while writing reviews using the BWWB methodology. What do you brag about when talking about the employee? What things do you worry about with this employee? Do you wonder about how the employee is doing in their area of work? Do you have any bets about the employee as they continue to develop? Here are some examples of how to think of each of these questions. When I brag about Susan, it is about the very complex conference she coordinated in July. It took twice as long to develop the materials as other programs due to the number of sessions and instructors being offered. When I worry about Susan, I am worried she is struggling to use the new customer relationship management system to manage her outreach with clients. When I wonder about Susan, I wonder if there are other ways to help her learn and use the new system. I bet Susan will master the new technology to become a super user who will be able to help and train others in the organization within the next year. This format is a very basic example of how to structure your document using the BWWB outline. The examples should be detailed enough that anyone reading the information can make sense of it, but you don't need to create paragraphs of information either. Use bullet points and remember to add in the examples the employee brings to the conversation, as well as anything the two of you agree should be documented from your meeting. How to deliver feedback. It is important to note here that this is a conversation, meaning a two-way communication. The beauty of the BWWB process is that it is designed to create a conversation between you and your employee about their performance and development. As you are sharing your feedback with the employee, ask them if they have anything to add each step of the way. This will help engage them in identifying takeaways when you're done. Here are some other things to keep in mind. Set the stage. First, schedule the meeting ahead of time, 1 to 2 weeks prior if possible. Remember, we're going for no surprises here. Also, you want to give the employee time to prepare properly for the conversation themselves. Next, when scheduling the meeting, be sure to block 60 to 90 minutes on both your calendars. An effective and thorough conversation requires time, and you shouldn't be rushed. Finally, create a comfortable, neutral environment for your conversation and try not to sit behind a desk. Put yourself on equal footing with the employee to avoid a power position. Conference rooms work well for these types of meetings, or simply move to the guest chairs in your office to create a more relaxed setting for a conversation. Always start with brags, which are really affirmations. This will set a positive tone as your conversation gets underway. State your worries next, followed by your wonders. This shows the employee you are concerned about how they're doing and allows you to ask questions to understand what they think needs to improve or change. Let them know that you're betting on their growth and development and that you're investing in them to succeed and achieve their overall and long-term goals. The last step in this process is to update the BWWB document with the additions and changes you've discussed with the employee during your meeting. Be sure to do this as soon as possible, and then send the final version to the employee and your HR person so that it gets added to their official personnel file. And that's it. You have completed a performance review. I hope you found this information useful. Again, please submit any questions that you may have through the chat box on your screen, and we will answer them in an article on our blog, which will be sent out after the webinar later this week. Also, before you go, I want to mention that Brag, Worry, Wonder, Bet is only one of 6 conversations that every manager needs to have with their employees. To learn more about these conversations, join Steve King for a free webinar, 6 Conversations Collaborating with Your Staff to Improve Performance, on Thursday, January 9th at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can register by scanning the QR code on the screen or by typing go.wisc.edu/6convos into your browser. Again, thank you for joining our webinar today.